Trustee Steinhauser, will you now please convene the Committee on Educational Policy?
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Will the Committee on Educational Policy please come to order? It is now time for the committee to consider today's consent agenda. Does any committee member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? We have 2 items. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any objections? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Item 3 of the discussion agenda is an action item regarding credit for prior learning. The item will be presented by Dr. Alva, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, and Dr. Rin, Associate Vice Chancellor, for Academic Programs, Innovations, and Faculty Development. Dr. Alva, will you please begin?
Thank you, Chair Steinhauser. Today we present for your action an item to amend Title V. The proposed policy changes will align with our credit for prior learning policy. As Chancellor Castro noted this morning, the CSU strives to become a more inclusive community. These changes support this ideal by extending access to a broader range of adult learners. Dr. Allison Rin, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs, Innovation, and Faculty Development, will provide further details on these changes. Allison.
Thank you, Dr. Alva. Historically, this section of Title V was entitled Credit Based on Examination. It allowed students to demonstrate their knowledge of course content through an examination without formal enrollment in a class. The proposed changes, outlined in further detail in the written item, provide CSU campuses with additional ways to grant credit for prior learning experiences. Credit for prior learning is one of many strategies to improve graduation rates and overall student success, particularly for returning adult students and veterans. There are 3 proposed changes to this section of Title V. Currently called Credit Based on Examination, we propose a more accurate title of Credit for Prior Learning. We also propose expanding this policy to include graduate as well as undergraduate students. Finally, we recommend including additional options to assess prior learning beyond examination. Examples could include a review of student work via portfolio, credit for professional certifications, interviews to assess mastery of a subject, and other faculty-informed assessments. Research suggests several benefits when students are allowed to demonstrate what they already know. These benefits include improved student retention, ability to earn additional credits, and a shortened time to degree completion. Returning adult students with work experience, as well as students who served in the U.S. Armed Forces, are the most likely to benefit from credit for prior learning. In fact, federal law requires campuses to assess a veteran's prior learning and training. We also believe these changes reflect a best practice in helping to reduce equity gaps. Chair Steinhauser, this policy change awaits approval from the board. We would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Chris, you're muted.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Alva and Dr. Rin, for this great presentation. Because this item involves amending a provision of Title V of the California Code of Regulations, these proceedings are deemed to be a public hearing under the provisions of the California Education Code. Any written comments received during the 45-day notice for this action item will be made part of the official file, and any public comments received during this meeting will be incorporated into the record. The public hearing is now closed. The credit for prior learning is an action item before the Committee on Educational Policy. Before we begin discussion, may I have a motion for the committee, from a committee member to approve the item?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Larry, I see you have your hand for discussion.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Albert, if one of the ways that you can gain credit is through a process of an interview, testing your expertise in the subject matter, how will we ensure that that is equitable throughout our 23 campuses?
Thank you for a really important question. I think what this policy does is begins by setting the framework for a broader set of examples of prior to learning that we will give credit for, including the expansion into graduate education. But the next step is going to be to create, for lack of a better word, crosswalks between the skills and those competencies or courses that we'll give credit for, and ensure that those are well publicized and available to all students so that they're aware of this opportunity to be granted credit for prior learning. Perhaps Dr. Rin might have additional insights into the actual implementation and how we will ensure equity on this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Alba, and thank you, Trustee Adamson, for your question. This is certainly something we are concerned about, and we know students talk to each other across campuses, so we want to make sure it is fair. We are also in the final stages of updating our broader policy on credit, which will hopefully be called Credit for Prior Learning soon. And we will we don't want to be too heavy-handed at first, but if we hear that there are inequities across the campuses, we can go in and revise that policy to make sure that it is fairer across all 23 campuses.
We have two other questions, one from Trustee Rodriguez and then Trustee Linares.
Thank you so much. First, I want to commend Vice Chancellor Alba and your team for really processing this in a very creative way. And I really appreciate really thinking about how do we serve adult learners that are potentially wanting to give back into educational institutions. My question is in regards to examples that I've seen from other higher education institutions. Does this prior learning also include work and life experience?
Thank you for a really great question. Absolutely. I think we need to acknowledge that learning happens in many, many places, both in and out of the classroom. And I was thinking about industry specialization. I could envision someone who, through the nature of their employment, is picking up some essential skills that when they intend to or do return back to higher ed, we should be granting credit for that type of industry-based learning and specialization. I think of the example that comes to mind would be, someone who is in the IT field, potentially doing really important work in system security. The kind of lived and professional experience that they would bring, we need to find ways to acknowledge it and give credit for that type of prior learning. And we can think of many other examples similar to that one.
Thank you. Now, Trustee Linares.
Thank you so much. I also do worry a little bit about what was mentioned earlier, the inequities across the 23 CSU campuses. And I do want to commend you for all of your hard work in putting this together. I cannot imagine that it was easy. I also wanted to ask, who was included in these conversations? For example, faculty, other staff that work closely with students on the ground on our campuses. Just curious as to who was included in the conversations.
Thank you for a really important question. And given my short tenure in this role, I'll ask Dr. Rin to answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alba, and thank you, Trustee Linares. That's a great question. We have, for the past year, worked diligently to include as many people as possible in this conversation. We have talked with faculty through our Chancellor's General Education Advisory Council. We have shared this, and there's a student representative on that committee. We have shared this with various administrative groups as well. We have worked through our professional and continuing education people to make sure that they are on board with this. We have worked very closely with our veterans coordinator here at the Chancellor's office to make sure we are fitting in with federal and state regulations. We have also had a lot of conversations with the California community colleges because we want to make sure that our students who begin at the community colleges and have the opportunity to earn these kinds of credits don't have to go through some extra administrative steps when they come to us. And go through it all again to prove they did something. We want to make sure that they are treated fairly. So we have done a lot of extensive conversation on this.
Thank you. Chair Steinhauser, is it okay if I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
Very brief. Okay, thank you so much. So the one student that was on the council, by any chance, was it a student leader? Was it a student at large? How did we recruit the student?
For a lot of our committees, we reach out to CSSA and they appoint somebody from their group.
Thank you.
Trustee Lopez.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who's worked on this. I think this is a great policy, and I appreciate it very much. You answered one of my questions, which was about coordinating with the community colleges so that transfer students didn't have to go through additional hoops. So thank you for that. The other question I have is your plans for monitoring this or collecting data so we can track how this is being implemented and how it's going. I know the community colleges is doing a fair amount of data collection around, gender and race and ethnicity and how many people get credit. And they're going to have some data over time. And I was wondering if on that score, you're also coordinating with community colleges so that we have comparable data, or at least data that we can look across segments to see how this is working for us.
Thank you for that question, and I'll field that one back to Dr. Wren.
Thank you. Trustee, sorry, you moved on the screen. Trustee Lopez, thank you. We will work closely with our institutional research offices on each of the 23 campuses, coordinated at our office by AVC Ed Sullivan. As we get the policy finally in place, we will establish what we want to collect for data. And yes, we will coordinate with community colleges so that we are collecting similar data. So if there are comparisons we want to make between transfer students and first-time students, we will be able to do that. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, this is an action item and only committee members may vote, and we do have a motion and a second. So Mrs. Matthews, would you please take the roll call?
Thank you. Trustee Adamson.
Yes.
Trustee Arambula.
Yes.
Trustee Carney.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Trustee Fagan.
Yes.
Trustee Furstenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Fong.
Yes.
Trustee Reynez.
Aye.
Trustee Sebelius.
Yes.
Trustee Steinhauser.
Yes.
Chair Kimball.
Yes.
Chancellor Castro.
Yes.
The motion unanimously passes.
Excuse me, I have a question. Are we not on the committee after the last action of the Committee on Committees?
You should, yes. Isn't that correct, Chair Kimball?
No, that was only decided in committee, and at the end of the Board of Trustees meeting, the Board of Trustees will agree.
For the next meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And thank you, Mrs. Matthews, for that roll call vote. The next two items are information items and will not need a vote. So the first item will be presented by Dr. Alva. It's an item regarding research along with Dr. Ramon. Dr. Alva?
Thank you, Chair Steinhauser. The teacher scholar model is intrinsic to the high educational experience offered by California State University. Hands-on, immersive opportunities in research, scholarship, and creative discovery help level the playing field and challenge our students from all backgrounds to engage more deeply with content, development, and testing of hypotheses. And they also help shatter barriers. The CSU is distinctive for its experiential model, where students work directly with faculty scholars. In the process, our students gain invaluable mentors and peers, expand their resumes, and sharpen their professional skills. During this presentation, Dr. Ganesh Raman, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research, will share a number of examples of research, scholarship, and creative activities across the CSU, most of which have continued to thrive through the pandemic. While the topics and campuses vary, all share a common focus on our university's mission to advance success and equity, enhance faculty excellence, and address the pressing needs facing California and its diverse communities. Ganesh.
Thank you, Dr. Alva. As Chancellor Castro shared in his State of the CSU address, we envision a post-pandemic university that's more flexible and bold, more inclusive for students and the communities they serve, and more technology-focused. CSU research scholarship and creative discovery underpin this in many ways. During the pandemic, those engaged with research on campuses found new and innovative ways to ensure that student research could continue despite restrictions in place for COVID-19. One example is Humboldt State University's Seaweed Farm, a bold pilot project that's a collaboration between the campus and the environmental nonprofit organization Green Wave. Students gain hands-on experience managing the farm while experimenting with different cultivation methods and measuring impact in removing environmental pollutants and toxins. Despite the pandemic, students persevered in their studies and research. One such story of resilience of many stories we could share is that of Kayla Landers. Kayla, pictured here, working in a lab, graduated from Cal State Long Beach in May with a BS degree in chemistry with honors. This achievement is even more impressive given that Kayla did not like chemistry in high school. Yet, when she arrived at the CSU, she was greeted by a highly supportive academic environment. She grew passionate about the field, and with the support of faculty and programs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, otherwise known as STEM, she has excelled. Kayla was accepted with Fulbright scholarships to some of the most prestigious universities for graduate school to continue her education. She'll be attending the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign to advance her career in research and teaching and to inspire future students the way many of her faculty inspired her. As we grow our STEM pipeline and increase the diversity of students, it's equally important that we help foster a sense of belonging for all students who wish to pursue a career in research. The STEM Success Program at Stanislaus State is doing just that. It provides support to underserved and low-income STEM students with a goal to improving enrollment, retention, and graduation. In 2020, the project funded paid research experience for undergraduates who work directly with a faculty mentor on scholarly research in their STEM field. The research projects were modified to be done virtually in response to COVID-19 restrictions. Fostering student-faculty partnerships is also a significant way to support student engagement and success. Through the system-wide Edison STEMnet Student Research Fellowship Program, undergraduate students receive funding to work collaboratively with a CSU faculty member. These collaborations help build problem-solving and critical thinking skills, as well as support both student and faculty in work that has a broader impact for our community. Not surprisingly, many community projects this past year addressed the pandemic. In the case of San Diego State University, this included the Communities Fighting COVID project. The program works to curb public health disparities through culturally sensitive contact tracing and mobile testing outreach focused on immigrants and people of color. Funded by the National Institutes for Health and the County of San Diego through an $8 million grant, this faculty-led program trains community health workers to connect people with resources to reduce barriers to healthcare. The community health workers are trained by CSU faculty using a curriculum developed at the university. Faculty also have launched CommuniVax, a vaccine outreach program. These community-based efforts, made possible by faculty leadership, have been critical to working with traditionally hard-to-reach populations and increasing testing and vaccine uptake in the region. The pandemic was a catalyst in developing new and innovative ways to connect our graduate students as well. This year was the first ever CSU Grad Slam, which builds on the CSU's long-standing tradition of hosting a student research competition. Making the most of the virtual learning environment, the competition was held online and featured 2 graduate students from each participating CSU campus. Students were asked to present a thesis or other creative projects in 3 minutes or less. Imagine a 3-minute thesis. The Grad Slam provides graduate students with professional development experience in showcasing their work to a diverse audience of community members, alumni, and business leaders. This year's winner was Sonoma State biology student Julianne Bradbury. She presented on the impact of fire on amphibian and reptile populations in California's wildlands. In addition to research and scholarship, creative expression is also a hallmark of a CSU education. California State University Northridge alumnus Julio Cortez was awarded a Pulitzer Prize this past year for his photo documenting protests in Minneapolis following the murder of George Floyd. Mr. Cortez, who works as a photojournalist for the Associated Press, was an undocumented student while attending CSUN, where he earned a degree in journalism. He is quoted as saying, "My goal was someday to take pictures that would end up in history books." Well, you've done it, Julio. Congratulations. Mr. Cortez's aspirations and achievements remind us of the importance of continuing to strive for an inclusive and diverse CSU community. Creative activities like Mr. Cortez's photography can help expand perspectives and offer transformative experiences. Creative work can also contribute to a more vibrant learning environment. The Digital Humanities Center at San Jose State University, for example, is a result of a $375,000 challenge grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. The center will support growing research and teaching in digital humanities by CSU faculty and others. It is a result of the university's unique partnership with the City of San Jose and the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Library. To help address the most pressing issues in California and its communities, the CSU is also partnering with public and private entities. A majority of CSU campuses are engaged in such collaborations, from Humboldt to the north, Fresno State in our valley, and San Diego to the south. The Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Cal State Long Beach is one of CSU's most recent additions. It is one of 3 members of a public-private partnership developing the new Long Beach Accelerator, the first tech startup accelerator in the city. Early stage startups are given resources and guidance in building out their businesses. The accelerator supports 3 cohorts a year and is attracting top entrepreneurs and investors, supporting the economic development and growth of the Long Beach community. To highlight the importance and impact of the Long Beach Accelerator to the local region, we have invited the Director of Economic Development for the City of Long Beach, John Keisler, to share a few words.
Hi, my name is John Keisler, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Long Beach. Public-private and university partnerships are critical to the future of our economy. The California State University provides the talent, both the workforce as well as the future entrepreneurs that will help the private sector develop solutions, create jobs, and continue to make our economy here in California competitive. A good example of this is the Long Beach Accelerator. By coming together, we're able to connect talent like Evo Electric, which focuses on electrified mobility, with the resources, access to capital, and mentoring so that they can flourish as a company, grow in Long Beach, and create job opportunities. We believe the future of California depends on collaborations like this one that foster innovation, creativity, and create new ways of doing business.
Thank you, John. Through research, scholarship, and creative activities that lead to discovery and knowledge, CSU students and faculty are advancing our understanding of the world while meeting the needs of California and beyond. This is achieved by student and faculty work across 23 campuses, as well as by efforts of the CSU affinity groups, multi-campus collaborations that conduct research on a breadth of topics. As we work to achieve our student goals, and particularly our goals to close equity gaps, we must continue to actively support and increase student participation in these efforts. Chair Steinhauser, this concludes our presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Alva and Dr. Rahman for the Sept data and research. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Just
Yeah,
a quick comment, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a quick comment, just to say thank you for thinking again innovatively and really processing what this private and public partnership is all about. And I think that is really the only way that we are going to succeed to give access to higher education and opportunities for our students across the CSU system is if we process that way. So really good presentation. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Kimbell.
Yes, I think this question will be for Ganesh. Ganesh, do you anticipate an increase in research funding from the federal spending that we're going to be hopefully seeing soon?
Yes, so we are pursuing every opportunity. We have now seen a lot of grants that focus on diverse faculty, hiring diverse faculty. This includes, pipeline grants where you first propel students to graduate study, and then you have grants for hiring, developing, and retaining faculty. There are also a large number of HSI STEM grants for capacity building at campuses. In addition, the National Science Foundation is also providing, additional funding in a number of areas. And under the new administration, there's an equity lens in almost all types of funding. So our campuses and our chief research officers are actively, pursuing these and also preparing for future opportunities, both federal as well as additional funding available from state agencies.
Thank you. That's wonderful to hear.
Thank you. Trustee Carney.
Thank you. Ganesh, I realize that the pandemic may have interrupted the participation of students in this research, but I'm wondering if you have any numbers for us on the numbers of students who were able to participate in research during this past academic year.
I would have to, get back to you with numbers, but campuses have done several things. There are processes in place for faculty to conduct research in the labs with students participating with all precautions observed. They also have ways to reimagine the experiential component, and there's also been funding to reimagine the experiential component. But in terms of the split of what percentage are participating in person or virtual, I don't have those numbers.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I just want to thank you again, Dr. Ramon, for this excellent update. Our next item, item number 5, is an information item regarding the Graduation Initiative 2025. The item will be presented by Dr. Alva, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Gold, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Success Initiatives, Research and Innovation, and Dr. Miner, Assistant Vice Chancellor and Senior Strategist for Academic Success and Inclusive Excellence. Dr. Alva, please begin.
Thank you, Chair Steinhauser. This morning, Chancellor Castro touched upon several themes that will inform and sharpen our focus, efforts, and resources. And they define the strategic priorities and impact of the California State University well into the future. Flexibility, a boldness, a sharp focus on technology, compassion, inclusivity, and equity. The Graduation Initiative 2025 hits all of these themes. As you may recall, as one of his first actions in his new role, Chancellor Castro formed the Graduation Initiative 2025 Advisory Committee, a diverse, talented, and dedicated team of stakeholders, including students, faculty, and staff. The group's charge was to explore bold and creative ways to not only maintain, but accelerate our progress towards GI 2025's goals, with a sharper focus on eliminating equity gaps once and for all. At our July meeting, we unveiled recommendations distilled by the advisory committee. Today, Dr. Jeff Gold, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Success Initiatives, Research and Innovation, and Dr. James Miner, Assistant Vice Chancellor and Senior Strategist for Academic Success and Inclusive Excellence, will share how we will advance and support these recommendations and best practices. Though the advisory committee had a breadth of ideas, they were unanimous in one belief. In order to close equity gaps, we must recommit and focus our efforts to achieve this monumental goal. I'd now like to invite James to begin our presentation. James.
Thank you, Dr. Alva. Among the thousands of CSU students beginning classes this month will be the 4-year cohort expected to cross commencement stages in 2025. Unlike any other cohort in recent history, they come to us having navigated one of the most challenging times for a high school graduating class. Some may have experienced personal losses to COVID-19. Many have experienced some level of learning loss, and they have not been unique or alone in this experience. Prior to the pandemic, and even more so during the last year and a half, CSU students have struggled with potential loss of housing, other basic needs, while others have struggled with the loss of employment or stable income. They have also emerged as a young generation reckoning in their own way with issues of social justice and climate change. It is within this context that a sense of urgency calls us today to recommit to the promise of Graduation Initiative 2025. Our class of 2025 will represent many things, resilience and hard work among them. Our shared hope is that this class and the many classes to follow will reflect this moment in time when we redouble our efforts to place students first and harness the collective contributions of all 23 campuses in the interest of their success. We've made steady progress in our graduation rates, and yet the impact of the pandemic on our entire educational ecosystem has been significant. As a result, we are called to make equally significant changes in the support we provide to all students. Graduation Initiative 2025 has often been described as our university's North Star or a guiding beacon. These metaphors of light have served us well during the uncertainty of the pandemic, as the initiative has helped us to remain focused on student success through the 6 key priorities on the screen. While we have not lost sight of these goals, we must and will consider new ways of leading this effort to ensure we remain focused on eliminating stubborn equity gaps. Today, we share a framework to translate the recommendations by the Chancellor's Advisory Committee into tangible action across our 23 campuses. These recommendations, many of which align with the Governor's Recovery with Equity Task Force report, place students and equity at the forefront. We believe that by leveraging the collective resources and the willpower of faculty, students, staff, and administrators, we can place a CSU degree within reach for all students. While additional details are provided in the written item for this afternoon's presentation, we will highlight how we intend to relentlessly pursue an equity-focused collective culture over the next 4 years and beyond. This will only be possible by amplifying our Graduation Initiative 2025 efforts to be strategically and intentionally centered on opportunity, collaboration, and a shared responsibility across the system. My colleague, Jeff Gold, will now guide us through these areas. Jeff?
Thank you, James. As one of the most diverse systems of higher education in the nation, the CSU is entrusted with the academic journey of nearly 500,000 students, 1/3 of whom are the first in their families to attend college, and approximately half of whom receive a Pell Grant. As was shared earlier, many of our students have faced significant challenges to their learning even before setting foot on a CSU campus. Addressing stubborn equity gaps means providing our students every opportunity to succeed on every campus, in every college, and in every classroom. Operationally, this means further prioritizing course schedules so students can take the courses they need when they need them. It means allocating Graduation Initiative 2025 funds for summer school and intercession grants to incentivize students to earn additional course credits and remain on track to complete their degree. It also means building on our recent success with virtual learning and scaling the CSU fully online program to enable students to seamlessly and concurrently enroll in online courses offered at other CSU campuses. Ultimately, it means that we hold a collective responsibility to turn obstacles into opportunities for our students. We know that these types of strategies required to eliminate equity gaps system-wide are as diverse and unique as our 23 campuses. However, we also know that there are a host of best practices that can be shared across the CSU to better address equity gaps. For example, implementing guided student pathways that provide consistent guidance from pre-orientation through graduation is a strategy that some CSU campuses have implemented to ensure students have the support they need to succeed. Collaboration within and across campuses will require us to step out of our established silos and engage together with a new spirit of collaboration. To foster and accelerate a cross-pollination of ideas, the Chancellor's Office will lead a series of campus support visits beginning this fall. These visits will leverage the collective expertise of faculty, staff, and administrators to provide campuses with targeted strategic and technical guidance, along with implementation support in areas critical to eliminating equity gaps. Perhaps most essential to our proposed framework is a shared sense of responsibility. Yes, we are 23 campuses strong, but we are one university system. Bold ideas require bold investments. As we steward new Graduation Initiative 2025 funding, we do so with a renewed focus on areas that have been shown to have the greatest impact and the broadest reach, from investing in faculty professional development, to improving equity in the classroom, to leveraging data in new and innovative ways. We will redouble our commitment to place students first in every decision. And finally, we will expand opportunities to bring the CSU community together, to delve deeper into root causes of our persistent equity gaps and share proven strategies for fostering more equitable student outcomes. Now I am pleased to announce that our first opportunity to bring the CSU family together will occur next month at the Graduation Initiative 2025 Fall Convening on Friday, October 22nd. For the second year in a row, this will be a virtual gathering where we will review the latest graduation rates and equity data, share best practices, and renew our collective commitment to supporting more equitable outcomes for our talented and diverse students. Please mark your calendar for what promises to be an engaging and inspirational gathering. With that, I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Alba for her concluding remarks.
Thank you, James and Jeff, for sharing these recommendations with us. And our thanks again to the Graduation Initiative 2025 Advisory Committee for identifying best practices and a set of actionable recommendations. These will be invaluable in helping our campuses take a more intentional and targeted approach to looking at their campus culture and systems to eliminate equity gaps. I'd like to close our presentation today, if I may, by sharing my experience as a first-generation student and a CSU alumna. It provides further evidence that the goals, strategies, and ideals of the Graduation Initiative offer our students the opportunities and the support they need to graduate with a CSU degree, a degree that will have a profound and transformational impact on their social mobility and success. I'm grateful for what the CSU has given me and our 4 million alumni. When I was a senior in high school, I made an appointment to see my guidance counselor. He steered me away from college and instead encouraged me to take the time to find a full-time job and get more work experience. I was devastated. I'd taken college prep courses and had a very high GPA. Today, I can only speculate about the reasons for his advice. What I do know is that when you're a first-generation student from a low-income or ethnic minority background, you receive messages just like these that cause you to question if you even belong in college. Fortunately, my high school Spanish teacher guided and assisted me in applying to college and for financial aid. And I was accepted to several major universities and chose to enroll at Cal State Los Angeles. That was the best decision of my life. I remember that day, I shared the news with my parents, both immigrants from Mexico. They were so happy and so proud. And they also left me with the responsibility to help my siblings and others achieve their college goal. As a golden eagle, I had faculty and mentors who encouraged me to soar and reach new heights. They also were committed to the CSU ideals of opportunity, collaboration, and shared responsibility for the success of all of our students. I'm deeply grateful for the experience the CSU has given me. I have a deep sense of allegiance and a call to service to pay it forward, especially through the success of the Graduation Initiative. This work is very personal for me. We are one team with one goal, student success. And guided by Chancellor Castro, under my leadership, our Chancellor's office team will be providing much more directed, centralized support to our campuses. It's time to quicken our pace and push bold, intentional, inclusive strategies to eliminate the equity gaps. I can't wait to see what we can accomplish together. Chair Steinhauser, this concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Alva, Dr. Gold, and Dr. Miner for this presentation. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Trustee Reyes.
Thank you, Chair Steinhauser. I first wanted to say Thank you, Chair, and also thank you, EVC Dr. Alva, AVP Gold, and AVP Minor for this wonderful presentation and your commitment for student success through GI 2025. And I especially want to thank you, Dr. Alva, for being really vulnerable just now and sharing your first-gen college experience and allowing students in the audience to have somebody that they aspire to be and maybe someday aspire for your position as well. Amazing things that you have done so far for the CSU and continue to do. I do have a question regarding two questions, if Chair allows, regarding basic needs and then equity gaps for URM students and Pell Grant students. So my first question is, can you please explain a little bit how the $15 million and $15 million that have been allocated to us as a CSU that go toward mental health, tech, and basic needs are distributed to the campuses and how students can get involved with where that money goes and how that money is used?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your acknowledgement of how important it is to tell our story and to share with others our journey. Each and every one of us has our own unique journey, and rarely do any of us have a straight line to success, but it is through that ebb and flow that I think we get stronger and meet amazing people who really become sources of inspiration and support for us. So thank you for your important leadership role as well to fellow students across the CSU. So your question for me was about the basic need allocation. There was $15 million in this year's budget that was allocated for basic needs, and another $15 million that was allocated to mental health services. And both those allocations, all of that allocation has been distributed to each of the campuses. And that builds on top of very significant prior investments that have been made on CSU campuses in these areas. But one of the really, I think, important features of this year's allocation was that those funds came as permanent or base funding. And so they're really fabulous opportunities to make the kinds of investments that we certainly heard about in the opening comments around counselors, mental health specialists, and others who can help address the needs on each of the various campuses. So my advice to students would be to reach out through their ASI leadership body to get more involved in how to help influence the use of these basic needs dollars and mental health dollars on their campuses, because that's where the dollars sit today.
Wonderful.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Ms. Reyes, you had another question?
Yes, I do have a second question separate from basic needs. I was wondering, I'm not sure if we're able to talk about the results yet. I'm not sure if we're just waiting for October, but I was wondering, are we on track for closing equity gaps for URM students, underrepresented minority students, as well as Pell Grant students? And a related question is, who are the leaders in the CSU that are really closing this gap? Who are the campuses? Who are the presidents that are really spearheading a lot of these successful initiatives to closing those gaps?
Trustee Rains, thank you so much. I feel like you have provided us a public marketing teaser for the October conversation. We have had a chance to look at the data in a preliminary way, and I'm pleased to share with you that the significant progress on the campus is continuing across all campuses, especially in the retention and graduation realm. The specifics will be shared in October, and we need to acknowledge that we're still closing out the summer term and making sure that the numbers are complete and accurate before we report them more widely. Are there campuses that are making progress more so than others? Yes, there are. And I think it's an opportunity to share across the campuses what makes those campuses, what are they doing that can help inform best practices across other campuses. I also think it's really important to put a really bright spotlight on Dr. Minor's opening comments and the role of the pandemic in influencing students' progress towards their degree. We know the pandemic has had a differential impact on our students, typically, most commonly, on the basis of socioeconomic and racialized minority identities. And so it really is a call to double our efforts and not leave anyone behind, but to recognize that the pandemic has had a very hard impact on some of our students more so than others.
Thank you, Dr. Alba. And thank you for your team.
Trustee Linares.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, thank you, EBC Alva, ABC Gold, and ABC Minor for your commitment to GI 2025. I know a lot of students definitely appreciate it. My question was about the campus support visits. I was wondering if you could touch a little bit more on that and what that would look like.
Thank you, Trustee Linares, and I'll let my colleagues field that one.
Sure, I'll start and then I'll turn it to my colleague, James Minor. So the idea here is really like an accreditation visit almost, not just to come and leave, but to leverage the best practices across the system. So the previous question asked about, are there leaders in closing equity gaps? Not only are there leaders, we're starting to identify with certain implementations, for example, around advising or around supplemental instruction, that some campuses have really been doing amazing work for years and years and years. And so the idea here would be that starting in the next couple of months, we would assemble a team of experts from around the system to hopefully, if the pandemic cooperates, come to the campus itself, if not, engage in a virtual visit to really work with the faculty, staff, administrators, students on those campuses to better understand what the challenges are, to help them formulate potential solutions, understand the root causes, move to solutions, and then be there throughout the next coming months to help with implementation as well.
Thank you. Trustee Arambula.
Thank you, Dr. Alva, to the whole team. Really appreciate the focus on this, the information today, and just the continued support for students throughout the system. It feels so important we're doing this. Dr. Alva, right at the very end, you, I believe I captured it correctly that you said we're going to focus on more directed, centralized support, and we must quicken our pace. It warmed my heart to hear those pieces. I know for the first 5 years or so of this initiative, we have really focused on allowing folks to find the strategies that best work. Now that we've seen some of those have a marked increase in graduation rates on some campuses, I'm so excited to know we're shifting to what seems maybe like phase 2. As a Board of Trustees member, I understand our role is not to then pick and choose which of these and to mandate that everyone do them, but it sounds like you all are taking the right approach. And I just want to commend you to ensure we're quickening our pace by identifying, getting clear about what that looks like, helping with implementation, and then following up. If there is a way we as a board can stay more engaged to continue to monitor the progress against this so that we're seeing our campuses actually picking up the new strategies and implementing them with fidelity, that'd be really great to see. I'd love to know that as we're on a path toward next year's data rolling out, so we can appropriately predict, should we expect to see even bigger gains as we attempt to eliminate all equity gaps. So there's not really a question in there as much as to say thank you for the work. I'm so excited to see this next phase, and I am excited as a member of the Board of Trustees to continue to monitor this on a regular basis.
Thank you very much for your comments, Trustee Arambula.
And to my colleagues, thank you for your outstanding comments and questions throughout this presentation. And to Dr. Alva and her entire team, thank you for this great work. You're so right. If we're going to close these equity gaps, it's going to take big, new, bold ideas to navigate the new normal that's coming up. It's going to take a lot of collaboration from the public and the private sector, both the public institutions as well as the private institutions. And I know that under Chancellor Castro's leadership, that we will be able to do this. This is a very, very exciting time. So Chair Campbell, this concludes the work on the Committee on Educational Policy.
Thank you, Trustee Steinhauser.